So the adventure from Wizards of the Coast, known as Vecna Eve of Ruin, recently came out. I reviewed the book before the actual release day because I'm a time traveler. Don't tell anyone. And TLDR, I did not recommend this adventure. There were a few minor flaws and two major flaws that led me to this conclusion. And now that I've had a couple weeks to marinate in the aromatic stew of this truth, I've started to think on how you could alter the adventure to make it work. Because the fact is, there's no such thing as a perfect pre-written adventure. They all require some tweaking. And with a little effort, I think you could change plot elements enough that if the rest of the story appealed to you and your players, you could find a way to turn this into a decent adventure. There's also going to be some general advice here for how to spruce up any campaign to make it more exciting. Players, I'm about to drop major spoilers for Vecna Eve of Ruin, so please click away now if you plan to or ever hope to play in this adventure. Okay, hey there DMs. And now we're going to dig into the two major flaws, starting with the less severe one and then the super major one after that. Here we go. First, Vecna is not a great actual villain. I went into details about this in my previous reviews, so I'm not going to recap all that again. But I will say that if you want to run Vecna Eve of Ruin, you're going to need to do some work on the BBEG himself. This is pretty common with WotC adventures. The basic problem is there's a lack of actual Vecna interaction in the book until the final chapter. This makes sense from a mechanical perspective because he's very high powered compared to the characters, so if he ran into them when the PCs are level 10 or 11 and it led to a fight, he would mop the floor with them. And from a story angle, he's concentrating on his devious ritual of remaking, so he doesn't have time to get all flirty and threatening with a bunch of mortals running around and collecting MacGuffins. The problem with that is you should not have a villain who's mostly absent from the story. I'm an author of several thriller novels, and thrillers are all about the bad guy. Having a good bad guy is critical in any story or storytelling game. We need to consider the basic writing advice of show versus tell. You can't keep telling us Vecna is like a totally bad guy doing totally bad things and just expect the players to feel motivated to stop him. The players need to be shown how bad Vecna is, and that will spur them on toward adventure. Seeing evil deeds inspires bravery in the hearts of the reluctant much more than being told about them. Luke Skywalker didn't really believe in the Empire's evil until they killed his aunt and uncle, and then again with the destruction of Alderaan. He had to see it with his own eyes, and we, the audience, needed to see that realization play out on the screen. Sorry if I just spoiled a 45-year-old movie for you. So how should we fix this? In Eve of Ruin, there is a game mechanic called Vecna's Link. The book says the characters each gain a metaphysical link to Vecna. The link is the result of feedback from the interrupted ritual. Vecna is unaware the characters, or anyone else for that matter, are linked with him, so the god has no reason to sever the tie. The link can manifest as subtly or as obviously as each player wishes, from the sensation of a specific smell when the character thinks of Vecna, to a loud noise only they hear when the Lich's name is uttered. Then the book also says, once the characters are metaphysically linked to Vecna, their connection to the Lich God might manifest in additional ways at your discretion. For instance, the characters might periodically see mental images of Vecna weaving his ritual, or the characters might dream about foreboding Vecnan images, including the Lich God's unholy symbol or robed cultists worshipping Vecna. Reminding the characters periodically about the Lich God's evil plan adds a sense of urgency to the adventure. So our solution here is to really lean into this Vecna's Link thing. And it needs to go much deeper than quote specific smells or a loud noise when they hear his name. I think you need to use this link to invade the PC's dreams every time they long rest. Make a list of terrible, awful, no good things Vecna has done in the past. Really get evil with it, then whenever the PCs settle down for the night, describe one of these terrible plot nuggets as a communal dream. Oh no, Vecna kicks puppies. Yikes, Vecna steals his neighbor's patio furniture. Ugh, Vecna uses plastic straws and he doesn't recycle. I'm joking, obviously. You need to show them scenes of awful things like murder, torture, oppressing the innocent, whatever your group can tolerate from a Lines and Veils content perspective. Your goal here is to make the players deeply detest this Lich and develop a strong desire to go after him and stop him at all costs. Because if the players are motivated, then the adventure is going to be a lot more fun and a lot more satisfying when they eventually face him and put him down. Make him truly bad and worth all the effort. Real quick, since I have you, could I get a like and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it helps us both out. Make sure to click all next to notifications. Thanks, you're the best. Okay, now let's get into the main problem with Eve of Ruin and talk about how to fix it. For some reason, Wizards of the Coast likes to write adventures where an important NPC betrays the party. My theory is that Chris Perkins, who has had a hand in most of these adventures, must have experienced that in a game when he was young, and he loved it so much he considers it a quintessential D&D experience. Anyway, there are a host of problems with having NPCs betray the party, but I'm not going to get into all of that now. In Eve of Ruin, the party meets up with a trio of powerful wizards. That is Illustrial Silverhand, Tasha of the Everything Cauldron fame, and Mordenkainen. Except Mordenkainen is not Mordenkainen, he's actually Kaz, Vecna's former BFF, who is now gunning to take down the evil Lich and usurp his position as the big bad guy in the universe. So Kaz as Mordenkainen manipulates the party into going on a big fetch quest to retrieve the Rod of Seven Parts, which he's going to use to free some imprisoned allies and wage war against Vecna. A lot of this adventure hinges on the party not figuring out this deception until late in the game. There's a section in the book about what to do if the PCs figure it out early. It says, although it's unlikely, the characters might become suspicious of Mordenkainen and question him. While I haven't actually run this adventure myself, I think the chances of them seeing through the ruse are much higher than, quote, unlikely. By level 11 or so, the characters are going to have spells like scrying, and even the basic detect thoughts spell could bust this all wide open. And so my advice to fix this problem is to just 100% lean into it. Absolutely let the PCs figure this out early. In fact, I think it would be fun to turn it into a detective mystery. There's a scene where the PCs meet the three wizards for the first time. You could tell the players that they get a strange sense from this meeting that one of those three wizards isn't who they say they are. Now let the party spend some time investigating all three of them, snooping around their quarters, spying, collecting clues, and talking to witnesses. Give them their Sherlock or Columbo moment when they figure out which one it is. And then what would happen after that? When Mordenkainen is exposed as Kaz, he realizes he can't manipulate the party into getting the Rod of Seven Parts for him, so have him teleport away to start collecting pieces himself. Now, instead of collecting all 7 parts as a fetch quest, collecting the complete rod becomes a race. For each of the 7, maybe the PCs get there first, or maybe they get there just in time to discover that Kaz has already taken that particular part. Maybe the dice can decide who gets there first, or you can keep track of time, and the more the party lollygags, the more likely they'll miss out on a particular piece. Either way, we're going to have to make some changes to Chapter 9 and 10. In Chapter 9, there's a big segment called The Betrayer Revealed, and you'll probably just skip over all that. Or maybe run it as Kaz appears and bum rushes the party to steal whatever parts of the rod they managed to get instead of him. Or if Kaz is dead because the party killed him in an earlier chapter, maybe a crew of Kaz's vampire servants try to reclaim the rod to resurrect him, or something like that. Regardless, the chapter should end with the party either having the rod stolen from them, or still having it, but learning that somehow Kaz or his minions are planning to free Mishka the wolf spider. Spider wolf? No, I think it's wolf spider. In Chapter 10, Kaz is supposed to have hijacked the rod so he can free his buddy Mishka. Well, you can easily adjust this so that he either doesn't need the rod because he's figured out another way to do the jailbreak, or he only needs parts of the rod, or whatever works for how your campaign has progressed up to this point. By now, the party should probably dislike Kaz enough to want to stop him from doing whatever it is he's doing, so you can probably run this chapter with only some minor adjustments. Then in the final chapter, the party will confront Vecna. If you've been running those Vecna Link dream sequences like I advised, then the party should feel sufficiently motivated to deal with this final threat. Or if as the adventure goes along the party doesn't really care that much about the Whispered One, you could easily make Kaz the final baddie and edit this chapter so that Kaz somehow defeated Vecna and he has taken over doing the malevolent ritual himself. Now I suppose we come to the question of, is it worth doing all this actual work? Check out my review of Vecna Eve of Ruin to answer that question for yourself. Pre-written adventures are always going to require some amount of finessing, because they can't account for every single decision your players are going to make. There's no such thing as a set it and forget it D&D campaign. That's just par for the course, and it's how it should be, otherwise you're running a railroady campaign. It's important to let the story go wherever it goes naturally, because the players need to feel that their choices have weight and impact on the world. So if you have decided to run this adventure, I hope my changes here make it more fun for you and your players. Check out my full review in this little window over here on the screen somewhere. Until next time, this is GM Jim. Now go out there and kill that evil bully Vecna.